204 is a bad idea.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. I have some copies of a handout, so I'll, if you don't mind sharing while I go on with my talk. So one of the perks of being a dad is that your children keep you current on popular culture. My son, this summer, took it upon himself to work his way through the Harry Potter series. So he told me that the Remember-Alls are little orbs that help you remember things you're supposed to do, and you can eat chocolate frogs if they don't hop away first. Now, he also told me that the Mirror of Erised, which was in the first Harry Potter book and movie, is a mirror that you look into and you see exactly what you want. So in Harry's case, he looked in the mirror and he saw his parents, because his parents died. I'm not going to give the plot away for you, but that's the idea, right? So what's going on in Arizona is that supporters of Proposition 204, which is going to be on the ballot this fall, if they were to look in this mirror, they would see a guaranteed funding stream for our schools. And that's all they want you to see too. And that's all that they would explain to you. What's really going on is actually something much deeper than that. The first thing they're going to tell you is that Arizona is first in cuts to education spending. Now, that's like saying it was 80 degrees yesterday and it's 95 degrees today, must be global warming, right? In reality, we have doubled inflation-adjusted per pupil spending in Arizona since 1969. Doubled. In fact, every state in these United States has at least doubled in inflation-adjusted terms what we spend per kid in public education. Second thing, and this is another one of their major talking points, that we don't spend enough, whatever enough is, on public schools. Truth is, we spend more than $9,000 per child. That means that between kindergarten and fourth grade, okay, that's about $45,000 per child. But guess what? 3 out of 4 of our fourth graders cannot read at grade level. So we've spent $45,000 on them and gotten virtually nothing in return. Third thing, Arizona has been cutting education for years. The truth is, and I'm going to show you a graph here in a minute, funding has increased even over the past decade, and we've had one of the worst recessions since the Great Depression. We've had a serious financial crisis. Last item on this slide, they will argue, well, it's not a tax increase, because we're just expanding a tax increase that we passed already. Well, there was life before Prop 100. For those of you who have lived in Arizona now for several years, you would remember, right? There was a time before we had this 1 cent sales tax increase. So it is a tax increase, right? There was life before a 1 cent, before whatever our sales tax, it's like 6.5% or something like that now. This graph, you can see the gold line that's stretching upward. That is per pupil funding in Arizona in inflation-adjusted dollars, real money, okay? Those flat lines that you could use for, I don't know, a ruler, that's student achievement in Arizona in 4th and 8th grade in both math and reading. So the takeaway from this graph, obviously, is what we are doing with our money and what the result is are two very different things. And remarkably, there are similar graphs like this that would represent what's happening nationally. This is actually pretty common. Arizona doesn't have anything to boast about, but at the same time, to say that Arizona is somehow unique because of our funding, how much we've been paying for schools, and how our students have been achieving is simply out of place. The reality is that a lot of states actually look like this, and the national average looks like this. Now here's another item, and this one is unique to Arizona. Our state auditor general does a report every year on school district spending. And they have this tiny little section at the end of their larger report that talks about all of the districts in Arizona. And in this section, they give the 5-year trend on per pupil spending. And as you can see from this bar graph, 185 Arizona school districts saw an increase in total per pupil spending between 2006 and 2011, which, by the way, includes the recent recession years. Only 30 districts saw a decrease in total per pupil spending. Now, obviously, these numbers are not adjusted for inflation, but as you've seen before, when we're talking about per pupil spending, already the inflation-adjusted numbers support and demonstrate the point that we have been spending more on education now for decades. This is the chart I was referring to earlier, which shows the red line is enrollment in Arizona, and that dotted gold line is inflation-adjusted total spending in Arizona. So you can see we peaked in about 2007, and things have trailed off, but notice that trail off as it's gone down is really a plateau when you put it in per pupil terms. We're only a couple of $100 different per pupil today than we were just 5 years ago. This is my new favorite graph. All of those dots are states, and they represent, on the left, achievement and gains in achievement, and on the bottom, increases in per pupil expenses. If there was a direct relationship between how much we spent on education and student achievement, all of those dots would be on that line. That would be a relationship. On this graph, it looks like someone just sort of threw pennies at the wall. And what this represents is that there is not a direct relationship between how much we spend and how students achieve. I'm not saying schools don't need money. Somebody's got to keep the lights on. They have to pay the bills. But the point is, with the dramatic increases that I've showed in the earlier slides, to have someone come to us and say, you need to pay more in taxes, you need to, because our schools need it, is frankly not true. What you need to know about this initiative is that less than 10% is going to be used and divvied out to schools based on results. The rest is going to go based on how many kids show up. Half of the money will go to schools without any accountability. That's $500 million of the first billion is just going to go. Now, of the remainder, it's a variety of special interest programs. Important point to remember, highway contractors funded this initiative. Highway contractors and teachers unions. So 20% of the money raised from this initiative is going to go to highway projects and other special interest programs. So thank you very much.